in low places or high places. We're at San Juan Bautista, California this morning at our retreat center, and so we are live here today. This is very different for me, so it should be fun. As always, pop into the chat room and say hello. Hi, Pat. Hi, Marilyn. Good morning. We've got Florida and Tahoe here and Livermore. So I want to share with you a couple of pictures about the retreat center so you can see kind of where we are. We've even got posters. Awesome. So there's working away on that one, so that's kind of fun. And then we've got just another shot of our room. It's a beautiful room here. It's absolutely gorgeous here in where we are. You've already seen that one. Me and my camera work. All right, people are busy. It's a busy room, busy place here. And let's kind of show you. There's the outside of the building, so you can kind of see where we are. It's just an absolutely gorgeous place here at St. Francis. And we'll be doing a block today. All right. Okay. I don't know that anybody, I don't know that that's true. I don't think we ever run out of fabric on this whole thing. So also I want to talk about desert windmills. The kit is behind me here, and that starts the first weekend of August. Next week I'll be on vacation. I'll be in the Midwest, in Omaha area, and so I will be gone next week, but the week after that we start Desert Windmill. And I want to say that if you're one of those who have bought a kit, that the kit they're sold out at the store, but if you would wait until we start with that project before you do your cutting, because the cutting in there is correct, the pattern is fine to follow, but there's a lot of steps, and I would like to share with you another possibility for you of cutting it that hopefully will make it a little bit easier for you. So if you got the kit and you want to have it cut out and ready to go, you might want to wait, because the first week we're going to talk about fabrics and color for those of you who weren't able to get a kit and still want to make it and get the pattern. I don't know if they still have patterns in the store, but they might. So you might want to check into that and go that direction with your own fabrics, and we'll talk about choosing it for that particular project. So today I'm going to be doing a very, and for those who have not seen the kit, there is the Desert Windmills project that will be starting the 1st of August. So if you haven't seen it up to this point. All right, let's, I think my friends have left from behind me. So they're a little crazy. So the block that we are going to be doing today it's an old pattern, and to complete the block you will have 4 squares like this, and when you put them together they form an X. And so we're gonna talk a little bit about size, how this goes together, and it's a great way to use up scraps, and that's where this came from. Now this quilt pattern, I have done this before many years ago. I've seen it a lot of times in a lot of different places, so it's not a new pattern, but I saw it somewhere, probably Pinterest, YouTube, something, and I really liked the bright colors that the person used, and I wish I could remember her name. I do not, and I'm sorry for that. If she sees it, or you're someone who knows who it is, put that up in the chat box. Because I don't remember where I saw it or found it. But I had a bunch of strips left over from a couple of projects that I did with Cave fabrics. So the majority of my fabrics are Cave with some other stuff thrown in this to make this quilt. So we're gonna work at this. My block is 9 inches finished. So to begin with, I had all the strips and I just cut them whatever size they were. There's a variety of sizes all the way from 1 inch. I think I even have a few things in here at 3/4 of an inch to 2.5. I think is the widest that I have in my group of strips pieces that I'm working with. And I do have, so I sewed a couple together, and as you can see, they're all different lengths, they're different sizes, they're different widths in that. But what I did do when I was sewing them together, and you're going to need about 15 inches in length for a 9-inch block. For if you want to change your size of your block to something smaller or something bigger, then I'll show you how to measure that in just a minute. But I sort of lined them up on one side so that I could get the width that I needed, and I'll cut this off for scraps, and that could become a crumb quilt or whatever if you're a scrapaholic and want to keep all those pieces that you're cutting off of the side. So basically I'm going to fold mine in half, trim the edge so that is clean. Let me move this out of the way. So I'm going to square up that this side of my strip set. And for whatever reason, I'm having all this trouble today. All right. And when cutting on strip set, especially like this, when I have all these seams and stuff, starting in the fabric, coming back and going forward, I don't have the movement, and I can get this pretty much straight on that. And so I am cutting my strip set 3.5 inches wide. So I'm lining that up on, and I'm going to have to move it. And I usually don't like to do that because it gets off again. All right, so now at 3.5 again, into the fabric back, so I don't lose that. And all right. So that's the first thing that you're going to do is sew your, for a 9-inch block, about 15 inches is what we're gonna need to put in the middle of that. And then now the next thing that we'll put on, let me go back to my block, is the sashing. I cut my sashing at 1 3/4 inches by 11 inches. So this is around 15, and so I have an 11-inch strip. So I want to find the middle of my two strips. And the reason I cut it at 1 3/4 is what I was discovering is that it wasn't always straight by the time I pressed it open, because I'm working with bias and all of that. So I made it a little bit wider, and we're going to trim that down in a minute. But the first thing that I want to do is find my center point in my strip set, and I'm just going to give that a pinch so I can find it when I'm ready. And then I think something that reads solid, so this has a small tone-on-tone print. I kind of like the red with it. I also, auditioned this yellow, but I'm thinking the red is a better choice. So now I'm going to work to find the center. Could you plug my I'm going to find the center of my strip. And the center of, you know, that red is hard to see where my center was. So we're going to go back and find my pinch. All right. It's not going to, you know, I did not measure this whole strip set, but we're going to trim it up and it's going to be okay. In terms of so I'm going to sew it in. I don't have my regular sewing machine, so new experience. The other thing, you know, at least on this machine, your machine may do the same thing. I pressed it in one direction, and sometimes, you know, your seam will flip and want to go the opposite direction. And so I'm just making sure because for whatever reason, you know, if you are pressed in one direction and it moves to the other as you're sewing, we get the lumps in there. So just kind of check that, and that's what I'm doing right now as I'm lifting it up, is every once in a while some of these have been flipping upwards, and I want to make sure that they stay down because I don't want them to. All right. So we're gonna press this to you know, your strip set on that side. I have a square here, and the magic of television. I spent all this time putting it together so it looks like a square. We're going to have the side pieces, and I'm doing one of the four in black and white, but more white than black, and the next block next to it will be more black than white, but it's still black and white in terms of that. So this will be my black one that I'm going to work on today. I have, you know, this particular one ready to go with my white, and so it's every other one, and when the four come together it's going to make that X in the middle of that, okay? And so then you're going to cut it diagonally across. So that's the, you know, magic of that. So let's press again. Always, you know, sink your threads. It does make a difference in terms of how flat your seams. And you know that if you are, you know, pressing this way, which is kind of intuitive for most of us to do this, your arm is, you know, the scientific term is not coming to me right now, but your arm makes a motion like that. So if you are pressing, press straight and run that along the seam, and then just let it sit without all that movement, because again, there's some bias that you're going to be working with, and you don't want to move. You know, you want to keep this as straight as possible. And that's why now you're going to go to the side here, and we're going to trim from the seam line, from the edge of that 1 inch, from the edge of this, so that we're going to end up with a 3/4 inch strip set on the side. And if you look with the ruler, you can see that if we're measuring out and trimming that down 1 inch so that this is definitely straight, especially if for whatever reason it has moved with the iron or whatever, it will end up finished at 3/4 of an inch. All right. So in my space here, so as you can see, I'm lining that up with the edge of my strip set. And this is another reason why I love these rulers, because I can move them without them moving on me with the fabric. All right. So now I have that trimmed to 1 inch from the edge of my strip set, and now I can put my other side on. All right, and I need to find the center of that. It's pinched, and I will stick it to the center of that one, and we'll sew this side on. You know, this is when you go back to a machine like this and you miss, you know, your needle up and down and my hover. You kind of miss those things. Okay, we're going to go back to the pressing. So again, the same mantra that I, share every week. Sink your threads. I'm going to run the edge of my iron just down my seam line, so it's nice and flat on that, and then just leave my iron sit so it flattens it out without the movement of that back and forth and stretching my fabrics. All right. And then this side will need to be trimmed up to that 1 inch as well. So let me get this. All right, now it's a matter of putting my sides on, and I want to go back and find my triangles. And I want to bring the block back and share with you again. So I'm going to find my center point on my strip set and my center point on my triangle, line those up and sew them on, and then we'll trim the block down to unfinished at 9.5 to 9. So here's my strip set, and normally I would trim it down to somewhere 9 so I don't have this these edge pieces on, but it really, excuse me, it really doesn't matter on that. I just need to know where my center point is on this, and now I want to know what my center point is. You have a pin? Thank you. So I've got these two together, and as you know, I mention often with the triangles, I like to also drop a pin, and depending on how big my triangle is when I'm sewing, and depending on my machine, this has a tendency to move in here as you're going with, when you're working with bias. So I'm just going to say drop a pin in the center of that, and I know that, you know, for some that may be a lot of pins, and I'm going to put one here because even as I'm doing it with my hand, it's wanting to pull away, and I want to keep the accuracy on that with that bias, and that's what's, you know, changing on that. So I'm going to drop the pins in, and we're going to sew. We're going to sew this on this side. And see, this machine is wanting to, you know, even pulling it out at that point, and it's wanting to pull the material on that. So for this particular machine here, I wanted that number of pins so that it's not going to move on me, and both sides. You can actually see on this side that there's a little bit of black where I pulled out that last pin. I really don't want that to happen normally. Again, you're going to set your seams, press this out of the way, and now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And because I just ironed out my little pinch, I need to find that centerpiece again, or where the center of my strip set is. And my center of my triangle. And again, I'm going to pin so that I can avoid losing that, and I'm going to wait a little bit longer to pull my pin so that that little section where I saw in the back that it moved on me. And I find that with this, you know, my little machine here, it has a tendency to push the fabric differently than on my Bernina that I normally use at home. So again, know your machine, know what it does, and pay attention to what's happening on the back side of your fabric as much as you do on the front side of your fabric. All right, so now we'll sew this side, and we're almost done. And I'm going to ask somebody, I don't have my 12-inch square, or my 12-inch, so I can mark that. I don't know why I don't have it with me. But look, I have helpers today. I have a 12-inch ruler just appeared.
12 and a half, is that okay?
12 and a half is perfect. All I need is 9 inches. 9.5 inches. I have a 9.5 inch ruler at home, but
It's not very,
let's, again, pressing, sinking those threads, running my iron down the side. And you know, it becomes so second nature after a while that you don't pay much attention to that. So now we're gonna, if I have 9 inches here, 9.5. Oh, here's a 9.5 inch. Gosh, you know, it's nice to have an audience that's going to be right here to help you. So you guys can all come next week and do, at my house and do this. All right, now as we're doing this 9.5, what I want is so let's just go ahead and pinch it again. Usually I can pretty much eyeball this with it, but to make sure that you see it correctly, I want the point of my ruler when I'm doing my first side to be in the center. So I'm giving myself room down here on this side, and my points, I want my ruler to be in the center of both sides of this. All right, and my space is a tad bit limited, but hopefully you can see my pinch right here and the pinch up here. So my points, that diagonal 45-degree line is through the center of this, and now I can trim this up to my 9.5 inch block. And at the top, I can put that right on my pinch, and it should be correct on that side. Now, again, 9.5 by 9.5. And my last side. All right. And with that, you have your block. All right. And then as we're putting these together, you wouldn't put a white one here. I've got one already completed, and these, go down to the points. And this is the bottom half. You put the next 2 blocks at the top, and you're going to get that railroad block that's been around for a while. So that's our block today, and hopefully that's another way that you can use up your scraps and be able to and all these pieces that are left over, for those of you who I said are scrapaholics, it's the beginning of a crumb quilt. And then, create your own fabric from that. So again, just to let you know that the center strip is 15 inches long. My sashings are about 9 inches, or 11 inches. Actually, if you take it to 11 inches, that'll be fine on that. So trim it once you have the sashings on, from the edge of your strip set to the outside edge at peace out, people. So the strip set then would be 1 inch out, and then your outside triangles are 7.5 inches cut once on the diagonal. And I believe in the forum area, those directions are there, and you'll be able to find them. And right now I'd like to go to and see if there's any questions. The square does finish at the whole square done. This right here finishes at 9 inches, but the the square on the outside is 7.5. All right. The side triangles, yes, 7.5 inch square cut on the diagonal. Thank you, Kristen, for talking about the jiggle, because it was jiggling, because this is not a solid table, and so it was going on, and I should have said something. All right. Sounds like Sherry is at a quilt show, biggest one she's been to. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions right now. Where's the retreat? In San Juan Bautista, California, at St. Francis Retreat Center. And it's absolutely beautiful here. We've had a great time, and my friends out behind me, obviously they're having a good time. All right. So I will see you in 2 weeks. Next week, again, I will be in the Midwest. I'll be in the Omaha area. I know some of you are here from Nebraska on the chat box. Do I ever use a rotating mat when squaring up? Not on camera, but yes, I do at home have my mat that spins, and when I'm squaring up like that, especially if I have the ruler that is the same size as I want my finished block to be, I will definitely do it on my rotating mat at home. But here and in front of the camera, I didn't have the space to make that move. But it certainly does make it much easier if you have the rotating mat. Good question, thank you. But it's a fun block, and the bright colors with the black and the white, it really showed well. But choose, whatever fabrics you want. And again, those sashing strips are probably the most effective if they are tone on tone, or they read, at least somewhat solid, and so they enhance the strip set in the center. And then the outside blocks, you don't want it to take it away from your fabrics. You want it to, again, enhance it so that the center is what shines. That X when you get the full block. So the full block then becomes an 18-inch, approximately 18-inch block. All right. Well, Jan, you're absolutely correct on that. That the centerpiece could be crumb quilting. There is no reason why it can't be. I just chose to use strips because from the quilt that I made, I had all those varying sizes of strips, and so I just used it. But crumb quilting would be absolutely wonderful for that. So in 2 weeks, we start Desert Windmills. I'm excited about that. We'll talk about value, color, putting together, reading the pattern to say, hey, I'm seeing this, how it's put together. I like to do this. I'm more accurate by doing it this way for, flying geese or half square triangles or whatever you're doing. So we're going to go through that, and I'll give you new cutting directions per block on that. And we'll have, again, the directions on the forum, and I know Kristen will put up a link. So have a wonderful 2 weeks. Enjoy whatever you're doing, and thank you for being with us here in San Juan Bautista and all my crazy friends out back. I appreciate that. So bye-bye.